Hello, YouTube family. It's another weekly update. I'm kind of enjoying slowly getting into YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about Saturn and how it's coming into Aries and what this means for a reset reality and most importantly, the birth of a oversoul civilization. So let's get into it. We're really at this remarkable threshold. Previously in newsletters and a couple of videos, I have mentioned that we've never entered a year where we've had so many outer planets going through transits. And, you have to go back centuries to find a time where we've had this many. And whenever you saw that, there was massive, remarkable changes going on in the world. And, this is going to be no different. If you've been following me in these last weeks, we've been talking about the great oversoul purge, dissolving of some of the viruses in many of the oversouls, many organic consciousnesses getting dissolved. We've talked about the cristic civilization found under the pyramids of Egypt, and then also how it was actually a global civilization, and how the first Vault 1, is going to be coming online later this year. We're going to take a group to Egypt in December, the Flame Bearers, to reactivate that vault. That vault was the descent within the consciousness field of our planet Terra, held in a higher harmonic universe. And these vaults are preparing to come online, and that is going to start the first cristic flame on the planet. At the moment, most people are caught up in the mimic signal. It's a stronger signal right now, and the cristic signal is very, very weak. But as that first vault turns on, we're going to have a much stronger cristic flame and more people coming into the truth and integrity of a cristic line. So it's pretty exciting. So May 25th, Saturday, Sunday, May 25th, sorry, we've got a big day. We've got Saturn enters Aries, and it's going to mark the beginning of an entirely new zodiac cycle. We're going back to the 0 point. It's much more than a archetypical reset of human reality. This movement is actually, synchronizing with the Oversoul Purge. It's the great cosmic clock in action. And so as this mimic signal starts to collapse and we get the reactivation of the first vault, we've got the starting point of a civilization reboot. It's not just a astrological season, it's a convergence point where we're going to have ancient scroll and codes and planetary mission timelines and cristic embodiment all co-aligning, coming together. So as we get Saturn crossing over from Pisces and into Aries, and later what's pretty cool is that it's going to actually conjunct Neptune at 0 degrees Aries in the beginning of next year in February. And as that Neptune and Saturn conjunct, this is like we're entering into a new chapter of human civilization. We're becoming the architecture of the new. And so let's drop into Saturn, which is all about, structure, sacred consequences, karma. It's a planet of discipline, of limits. It's a keeper of time, keeper of maturing. It's a planetary gatekeeper. And what happens is Saturn makes sure the dreams become real, not by kind of wishful thinking, but by, sacred labor and integrity. And people often call Saturn a hard taskmaster, but it's just the reality truth of what needs to happen to birth something into the physical domain. So in a spiritual sense, Saturn's kind of like initiates you. And it's a planet that says you just don't get to receive, in this case, I want to talk about the oversoul. You've got to prepare your body to embody your oversoul. You've got to be prepared to walk it. You've got to build something worthy in your internal architecture and your external offerings that is a full alignment with your oversoul scroll. So as Saturn leaves this dissolving womb of Pisces and it crosses into the fire of Aries, right, we're leaving the field of dreaming and into the field of building. And of course, that is a whole different ballpark. And so Pisces has been kind of more like a gestating energy, right? Whereas Aries births. Where Neptune imagines, Saturn formulates and forms. And so with this historic conjunction at 0 degrees Aries, February 2026, a whole new mythos is going to be seeded into the morphogenic field of humanity. And this is exciting because a new civilization is waiting. And so, but before we go any further, we've got to get into the architecture Saturn's going to help build. And we need to sort of say, hey, what are we actually building here? What are we going to anchor? What are we going to stabilize? What are we going to deliver? And from my perspective and the council's perspective, the concept of scroll becomes essential. Because if Saturn is the builder of form, the scroll is the divine instruction set it's being built upon. So we're going to have to like cut away for a moment and dive into what a scroll is before I go deeper into Saturn, because I need you to understand, why it's so important. It's what it actually is. It's the deep blueprint of your oversoul. Your soul is an extension of your oversoul. It's one thread of a much larger stream of consciousness. Like your oversoul is, almost 12, individual souls unified as one consciousness field. And each oversoul has its own divine instruction set, what it's here to birth through. And as you've heard me mention before, if you've been catching into me, many of the divine instruction oversouls are coded within the oversouls. There's been mimicry placed in them, and many of these oversouls now don't remember their original instruction set, which is why we're going through this oversoul purge later with some of the top individuals on the planet are going to have their oversoul dissolved, because it's literally a virus plugging into our planet, and each human becomes a node on the planet for this massive oversoul sort of virus that's locking together the existing systems. Because what's going to be birthing as we birth civilization anew is that none of the existing architecture, energetic architecture and physical architecture of education, finance, money, health, all these different systems, the healthcare, the pharmaceutical industries, the central banking system, the way that we work, none of it is cristic. So it's all going to need to go through a purge. So for this rebirthing to happen, the planet is entering a phase where scroll activation is becoming available at scale. We're going to start to see the mass descent of oversoul consciousness as the cristic flame starts to switch on. People are going to start to be able to access this scroll. And this is not going to be just for mystics. And this is not just for people with titles or training. It's for anyone whose personal energy field and stream has become clear enough to receive the oversoul directly. And so let's get clear on what this means, right? What's a soul? So we're going to talk about soul contracts versus scrolls. Now, soul contracts are real. They what they do is they shape the theme of your incarnation, and they change incarnation to incarnation, right? They determine who we meet, who we agree to explore, what lessons we're going to learn, the challenges that we're going to endure that's going to stretch our growth. They're flexible, they can change, and they're designed to evolve as we evolve. But a scroll is something else completely different. A scroll's eternal. It's the original blueprint of your oversoul, your core purpose, beyond space, beyond time, beyond any individual incarnation. It's written in the light of your own eternal flame. You do not create your scroll. You cannot manifest it. You remember it. And when that memory returns, it doesn't come as information, it comes as identity. You no longer what you purpose, you no longer what your purpose is, wonder what your purpose is, you become it. And so this leads to the question, what happens when a scroll activates? Well, you begin to become in a full attunement with divine will. Karmic overlays begin to collapse. False identities, missions, or distortions, they all begin unraveling. Your internal conflict gives way to coherence, and a new architecture of yourself begins to form. Your scroll isn't just guidance, it's the instruction set for your entire incarnation. It tells your system and energetic architecture and soul consciousness where to go, who to serve, and what frequencies to carry. And the truth of it is, on the planet right now, most people carry dormant scrolls. And it's not because they're unworthy, right? But it's because their energy field hasn't stabilized enough to hold the full oversoul signal. And this is what the problem's been, is that we've had this mimic signal has been deceptive. It's been filling the space with false light, with seductive distortions, with spiritual performance that mimics alignment but never really roots it. So a lot of people dance with the false light, the priestess crowd who are in distortion, or the masculine who are in force-in currents. However, as I've mentioned before, this mimic field is collapsing, And as this oversoul purge goes through, there's going to be more room for the true signal to come online. And this is going to mean that your scroll is going to have room to land. And because most people are unfortunately on a mimic signal, it means that they're not directly plugged into their oversoul's true north. And according to the Melchizedek Mystical Library, at the time of this I wrote to this article and I'm sharing this information on YouTube, 85% of individuals are plugged into distortion frequencies at some level, living through, either inherited belief systems, false missions, synthetic purpose structures, or maybe even some, external validation loops that they're in. They believe they're on the path, but they're actually circulating within energetically closed feedback systems that keeps them orbiting around the oversoul, but never truly landing within it. And so what we're seeing here is this mimic signal isn't just a personal distortion, it's actually a planetary architecture. It's actually this entire synthetic overlay that's replaced the organic oversoul pathways with pre-programmed identity templates, which has created distortion in humans and left them off the signal, which is why our planet's got so off track. And so this is why the removal that's going to be happening later this year of the mimic field and this big oversoul purge is so significant. This is not just some sort of spiritual event. This is a system-wide reset. And it's going to reset how consciousness is allowed to organize itself on Earth. So it's like, completely changing the Wi-Fi signal. At the moment, the Wi-Fi signal is so strong of the mimic that people find it hard to break through and get the clean signal. But that Wi-Fi signal is going to be taken down. I call it the virus signal. And it's going to start dropping away pretty quickly. So that 85% of the planet who are simply right now receiving noise and not the true signal will have the opportunity to listen more carefully to their true oversoul signal. For example, as this happens, and I'll give you a heads up when it's beginning, the councils will inform me. What we're having here is that you may find yourself just coming off listening to certain people who you used to listen to before, certain figures who you enjoyed their content, you're just not going to resonate with anymore. You're just going to find it hollow. And you're going to find it hollow because the field or the feed that was coming through them has been plugged out because they're on the false signal, but you couldn't discern. All of a sudden you're going to go, I don't resonate with that one anymore. I'm going to not consume that, listen to that material. So this is why a lot of change is going to happen in the second half of this decade, right? We've got these, and something else is going to happen is these massive AI supercomputers that have been built by the cabal to model, to predict, to shape human behavior are going to start going haywire. Because all their predictive programming algorithms that are trying to shape and control consciousness on the planet and shape and control humans on the planet, they're not going to account for the signal shift. And so while they're plotting, right, and putting their next version of dystopian digital control together, right, they think they've got their algorithms and ducks in a row for another round of planetary compliance, Mother, Father, God is going to shuffle the decks and is actually going to rewrite the game. And that's when the signal is going to change. Because when the mimic field collapses, the old code just doesn't disappear. It gets overwritten by this incredible organic oversoul intelligence. And this is incredible because the variables then start becoming infinite because they can't predict oversoul scroll, these supercomputers, right? The true signal, the true soul stream is going to have a chance to enter the equation. And no AI, artificial intelligence, no matter how advanced, can accurately predict the behavior of a being acting from oversoul alignment. As soon as someone hits and fully embodies their oversoul, you can't algorithm sort of God's eternity plans. You can't program a soul that's living a scroll. It's not possible. And so that's what's coming. It's not a revolution of rebellion, but more of an uprising of sovereign clarity. Because when even one being walks away in full oversoul embodiment and full oversoul alignment, it sends shockwaves through the matrix, right? It's a relatively rare event and rare occurrence when someone fully embodies their oversoul on the planet at this time. But now imagine thousands doing it. Imagine millions doing it in this second half of this decade. And that's what they fear. That's what the Illuminati and the Cabal fear. That's why what we're anchoring. This is why it's our time now, your time, my time. It's because the true signal is going to rise. And no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to get out the way of it, or because this is in God's cosmic clock. It's been decreed. This is the time of the sheep and the goats I've mentioned before in another video. So let's take a look at the scrolls of the Oversoul and this new planetary architecture that's going to be opening up, and how this sort of feeds together. You've heard me talk about a vault. A vault has been a locked pocket of consciousness from a time period where we used to have a cristic civilization that the, let's call it the controllers don't want you to know about. And these vaults aren't physical vaults, but they're consciousness vaults. And they've been locked down and protected by the high councils because simply it hasn't been the right timing to have them open. And so what these aren't just an archaeological event, the opening of one. It's a scroll node. It's a release point on the earth grids that reawakens oversoul intelligence. So, for example, as this starts happening, you may feel a sudden call to a sacred site, right? You might just need to go somewhere. You're drawn to a particular ritual or someone you haven't heard before that you just don't fully understand, but maybe it's your scroll beginning to hum. And so what I'm asking you to do is to pay attention to what calls you during this time. Your scroll might not speak at words at first, but it's going to pulse through your field like this beautiful divine tuning fork. And what you've got to do is you've got to follow the feeling and follow it, right? Because what's coming next is not another phase of just spiritual interest. It's about you embodying your scroll. And so as more and more people start awakening to this, we're going to have this network of flame bearers, right? Who remember why they came, who stabilize this next civilization, not through status or positions of power like is going on right now, but through frequency. So most people are carrying dormant scrolls because they haven't built the inner coherence to hold the frequency signal right now. It's all about embodiment. And you can't hold it unless you integrate your shadow, right? It's all about shadow integration. And that's why we've built a whole 3-year journey for people to support them, into embodiment of their scroll, into embodiment of their oversoul at the Neo-Shamanic Society. We're really excited about what we've developed because it is cutting edge training and embodiment work about becoming the best version of yourself. We need to get as many people as possible onto their oversoul so they can hold it. And the sad truth of it right now is that there's many light workers on the planet are on a false signal. And that's because they're bypassing the real spiritual growth work, which is shadow integration. It's about embodiment, not about leaving, not about ascension. It's about embodied ascension. They are bypassing by chasing the bliss, by getting into those frequency bands where the bliss is. But it's all wrong. It's not about ascending. It's about descending. It's about descending your oversoul into your body. And that's why we call it embodied ascension, right? It's the center point of the entire philosophy of our Neo-Shamanic Society school. The school, it's a pathway within to the healing arts, and it's a pathway of your personal evolution and growth and development. This whole kind of little conversation I've had with you is exactly why Saturn, that's arriving in Aries on Sunday, is so significant. It doesn't mark just a new astrological season. It's the planetary initiation into embodied oversoul reality. The scrolls are landing, the vaults are opening, and now we need the spine, we need the stamina, and we need the maturity to hold what's coming through. And that's what Saturn in Aries is going to bring. It's going to bring this archetype rite of passage that humanity and many people have avoided for so long. And so this is going to mark the end of spiritual adolescence and the beginning of spiritual adulthood. So let's unpack this. Let's unpack Saturn in Aries, because it really is the graduation. It's the spiritual adulthood of our planet and of the people within the planet. So Saturn isn't just another planetary body. All planets are archetypes, but Saturn is the cosmic archetype of sacred consequences. So when I work with clients in, so we'll say, karmic patterning, Saturn always emerges as a teacher who doesn't allow you to have shortcuts or spiritual bypassing. So you might have heard the term Saturn returns, and this is just simply relating to, this Saturn around the age of 28 coming back around to make sure you're on track. If you're not on track at 28, you get a little bit of a Saturn slap, right? And it knocks you around a little bit in your late 20s. And then it comes back around again when you're 56. And if you haven't learned it the first time, you're going to get a double Saturn slap as it comes back around, commonly called a midlife crisis. So it's just really this is the force in the universe, in the cosmos, that demands integrity. It says you want the real, then you've got to build something inside yourself and outside yourself worthy of it. And in astrology, Saturn's the pinnacle and the principle of crystallization. It's the process where your ethereal ideas have got to land, right? They've got to must pass through you to become physical reality. So Saturn tests us not to punish us, but just to ensure that what we bring into form has substance, has real to it. It's real, it's durable, it has truth. And yep, it's a hard taskmaster. And everyone's got to pass through it to take your dreams and anchor them into reality. Aries embodies this purity of impulse creation. It's the spark, it's the beginning. It wants immediate action. It wants to move, it wants to initiate, it wants to birth, often without consideration for consequences or sustainability. So when we bring this, impulse creation, the spark of Aries, into the structural discipline of Saturn, there's this creative tension that emerges. And this isn't comfortable tension. It's the kind of tension that makes diamonds, that turns coal into diamonds, that the kind of tension that transforms raw potential into masterful expression. So what we're going to see is Saturn is going to move through Aries between 2025 to 2028. And we're going to have that energy, right, going for 3 years. We're going to witness this alchemical process, both at our personal level in your personal life and at the collective level. We're going to, move from form to fire, right? Turning inspiration into systems that last. And we're going to have patience to impulse, teaching us that true creation takes time. Anything worthwhile building takes time to build. The bigger the tree, the longer the tree roots grow before they grow up. And you're going to move from discernment to desire. We're going to have to refine our wants and needs to serve the whole. It can't be about us anymore. It's got to be about serving others, on the path of service to others. And we're going to move from maturity to mission. We're going to have to make sure that our actions align with our oversoul scroll, with our oversoul purpose. So this marks us coming out of being teenagers spiritually, right? And as humanity evolves, we're going to have to grow into adults. For too long, we've been, as a species, consuming spiritual experiences, chasing enlightenment like entertainment, right? Treating awakening like a product rather than a responsibility. So Saturn coming into Aries is going to initiate you and everyone into true spiritual adulthood. And so it's going to ask you the question, can you bear the weight of your own divinity? Can you shoulder the weight of your own power? Can you maintain structure when inspiration fades? So this is not the time to chase the next spiritual high or follow the latest channeled information from some being. It's time to anchor the scroll you carry, to ground this cosmic intelligence into some tangible form, not as content for consumption, not as concepts for discussion, but as identitied self, embodied, expressed, and made real through consistent, deliberate action that makes something meaningful in the world. Have a vision, make it 10 years, and start from building something. Building a 10-year vision is interesting. We've done it as we've built this neo-shamanic society, building the school that we're building. It means you've got to have deep roots. To have a vision so big, you've got to build the foundations for it. And that's what Saturn's going to make you do. It's going to make you grounded in. So when Saturn, you meet it in Aries, you're not creating temporary structures. You're birthing eternal architecture of consciousness that can hold and transmit oversoul frequency. And as you kind of do that, you're going to have to sort of recognize that it's all about embodiment, bringing your higher consciousness down into your body. Now, these celestial archetypes and the Saturn and Aries and even the transit between Saturn and Neptune, there's a lot of interesting energy not just happening in the sky, right? It's happening in the earth as well. So I want to come back around and talk about these volts, because we've got that celestial kind of broadcast, but in the earth grids, we've got these volts that are opening, right? So we've got Volt 000, Taranaki, Mount Taranaki, where we live here, has opened. That is the base node architecture for the new cristic quantum financial operating system. I'm going to talk about that again later in another video, but just quickly, imagine a new financial system that rewards you based upon scroll alignment and frequency set point and coherence. Imagine that. You get rewarded for how aligned you are to your oversoul scroll and the particular frequency of consciousness that you're anchoring down. Then the rewards come and the financial gateways open for you, the higher consciousness you hold. That's what's going to be built in this Christic civilization. Then we have Volt 001, Azahim Tai in Egypt. That is, remember the previous video I gave about these massive structures under Egypt? Well, what's basically happened is that these have formed very, very deep roots in the planet, and that has seeded the awareness of a morphogenic field of an ancient Christic civilization. Azahim Tai. You can look back at my other YouTube videos to get the whole download on that. This is going to release, when that opens in December, and we're going to take a group in December to help open up this vault. And this vault is going to be a scroll drop. And this vault is going to be the first releasing of the planetary architecture for a Christic civilization. And Saturn in Aries acts as the field anchor for these scrolls. Without it, without this backdrop of Saturn coming into Aries, they just remain cosmic potential. And with it, they can take root and form. And so when this begins to happen and this first vault opens, you can expect new leadership templates, collapse of, say, performance-based spirituality, the rise of the Cristic builders, the scroll bearers, the soul-embodied innovators, because their signal hasn't been heard right now because of the synthetic overlay, because of the virus signal. Many of the top 100, most of the top 100 people on the planet who are the big influencers on the planet are on the mimic stream, are on the virus stream, and they're going to get plugged out from their oversoul virus that's feeding this virus into the planet. And so suddenly we're going to see this massive shuffling of the deck. It's going to be really, really quite incredible. So that's really exciting. And I really love to talk to you about Saturn Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, the cosmic reset. Let's jump into that. So as we dive into this Saturn Neptune piece, I just had to take a little call there. Sorry about that. We've got Saturn Neptune 0 degrees Aries. This is 0 degrees Aries is literally the big bang of the zodiac, right? It's the 0 point. It's the kind of cosmic syllable of the I am, right? This is the zoom where it all begins. Now, when this happens, Neptune and Neptune isn't just a little tweak to the system or anything like that. It's just not some rebranding of an old mythos just regurgitated. It's the complete obliteration of the old template, right? That has governed our collective consciousness for so long. It's the birthing of a whole new operating code that's going to be seeded directly into the oversoul field. Now, if we take a look about historically, when we've seen Saturn-Neptune conjunctions happen, 1989, it conjuncted in Capricorn, right? Berlin Wall falls, institutional borders crack, right? Big changes. We go back, the previous time was 1953 in Libra, right? Cold War, world order stabilizes through diplomacy, and global treaties begin happening in 1953, Cold War. 1917, Leo, right? Saturn, Neptune, conjunction, Leo. We got monarchies collapsing. We've got dramatic new power ideologies rising up. All of these happened within the existing archetype framework. But in 2026, February, When they conjunct in Aries, it breaks the pattern. And that's because of the way time works. Time isn't cyclical, it's spiral. It's spiral evolving upward. And so because Aries 0 degrees is a starting point of the astrological chart, it's a reset point for the next evolutionary cycle upward. And so this means that, 0 degrees Aries is not asking for permission. It doesn't refine. What it does is that it initiates. This is now the new mythos. It doesn't bring the blueprint, it brings a scroll. It brings the new blueprint for the next era of humanity's move forward into a cristic civilization. So what we're going to see is global identity systems just begin to dissolve, reconfigure, change. We're going to start to have these spiritual governance structures, the institutions, the schools, the lineages, the churches are all going to be stripped of their mimic signal, right? All the major religions, which are all just distortions of the true Christic signal, right? They're all devoid of the feminine principle. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. There's no feminine principle in there. It's a mimic signal. It's a false signal, right? They're all going to start, people are just not going to be resonating with them anymore, right? And we're going to start to see the rise of more soul-aligned economies. More resource systems are going to start emerging from the ashes of these exploitation-based fiat currencies, which are currently the central bank control manipulation system. And so the world's no longer going to be a managed project by a group of elites, right? It's going to become a living field of oversoul activation, a canvas for true builders who remember the scroll that they carry and accessing it, living the scroll. If you hold your scroll, it means you've done the work to integrate the shadow, your ancestral shadow, the shadow on your soul and oversoul, and you're able to stabilize the light. So when this collapsing comes, you're not going to be confused by it because you're going to remember what time it is, because you're going to be one of the ones who are called to construct the new mythos through frequency, through embodiment, through action, divine right action. And so this conjunction later in February next year is this pulse point where destiny overtakes strategy, where the divine instruction sets eclipse the agenda, right? Because it's just human agenda running the show at the moment. It's going to mark the moment where Earth's story starts again from scratch. The world's going to feel fresh for new, but it's going to be seeded by Pisces. But it means whatever you've ever been dreaming, or avoiding, will begin to take form because Saturn is the law of consequence. If your dream is false, it's going to collapse. Many people are going to be shocked by the things that they think are holding to be true. They're not true. And they're not going to have the frequency to build form. But if your dream's true and it's true north, it's on the cristic signal, it's going to work. It's going to drop in. Many of you who have been on the true signal have been struggling to make it work because of the false signal has been in here. It hasn't been the time yet. Everything has its time. And if your dream is scroll aligned mission, this will be your moment. So let's build it right this time. From scroll, from soul, from truth. And so as we enter this next era of spirituality, it's all about the question, can you embody the real? Because we're leaving behind the age of channeling, of performance, of floating potentials, of the false personas, of the masks, of love and light, beloved, all that nonsense. It's all going to go. What people think spirituality is. It's all the question is, can you hold your oversoul in your body? Have you done enough shadow integration so you can hold coherence and therefore have radiance? Because as Saturn comes in, and of course we've got Saturn this squeezing in this Aries piece, right? It's going to sort of bring it up. Saturn's going to ask you, can you stabilize the field? It's going to get bumpy if you haven't done enough shadow work. Do you have, can you stabilize the field long enough to hold and deliver the scroll that you carry? That is what Saturn is going to ask. That's the reality that you're going to enter, that we're entering in on Sunday. This transit, especially as we get to February in 2026, are you building from the mimic code or the cristic code? Is your identity scroll aligned or is it inherited of a mimic signal? Are you designing systems worthy of your oversoul? So from 2025, as we enter it on Sunday, the 25th of May, we're not going to be just dreaming of a new world. We're going to start constructing it. One oversoul at a time, one scroll at a time. As I mentioned before, every time an oversoul becomes fully embodied, it sends massive waves through the grids. So this is really what's important. And so like right now, just got to keep the faith, keep your eyes and our eyes on what really matters. Family, love, friendship, kinship, service to others, being in joy, being in happiness, right? Enjoying us in the moment, the effervescent joy of living your scroll, of birthing it, laughter, right? Happiness. Remembering all these things are inside of us, not outside of us. We just simply need to reconnect with the luminosity that is in our hearts and the beings that we draw around us and remind us of the joy of being human. You know, humans are remarkable. We are remarkable. You're remarkable. I love you. Thank you for sharing the video today. If you like these transmissions, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to commit to doing a video once a week. Hopefully it resonates, it lands. And just as a reminder, we've just birthed the world's leading cristic soul mapping technology. I've just recently opened up readings on my list, integrating sessions for what we call a soul schematic sequence. Currently, I've got a 3-month waiting list after opening it for just 2 weeks. But if you feel motivated and aligned to make the most of what's happening in the world, I'd be honored to do a soul schematics reading for you. It's an in-depth report of your entire soul, your oversoul, your soul history, your journey, your past lives, your station of embodiment, your karmic imprints, everything that you've ever wanted to know about your soul is most likely in that report. This is not a report for your personality. This is a report on your eternal consciousness. I'll give you that report, and we have a live session where I initiate you into the next stage of your oversoul embodiment. So if you'd like to join the queue of this life-changing experience and get this full existential, beautiful report, there's a little link in the description below where you can register for that. It is an investment. It's 5,000 USD for a live session as well as the full report. It's a very deep, detailed eternal soul consciousness report. It's a cristic soul mapping technology. It's just been birthed. We're testing it now and it's helping and assisting people on their oversoul embodiment journey. Other than that, all my love, best wishes out there, and get aligned to all the changes. Be kind, gentle, and loving. Catch you on the next video.